Hold your breath. Make a wish. Count to 3. Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look, and you'll see into your imagination.
Written and performed by Gene Wilder, the song Pure Imagination continues to move human hearts to new levels of emotion and creativity. As one listens to the lyrics, one may begin to feel its message of human ingenuity and the necessity it pushes for imagination in understanding the human experience. It first debuted in the truly magical film Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which, similar to the song and the environment in which it is sung, it sweetens the heart to a world of artistry and inspiration. You see, each form of art, such as sculpting, photography, painting, music, theater, etc., has the power to do this, to move one's mindset to a realm of positivity and healing, or further, to an area of truth, goodness, and beauty. Movies, a combination of many art forms, pulling each of their strengths together to create something absolutely magical, continues to soar humankind to new heights as they act in the way of memories. They press through a new waveform of both nostalgia and vision. They conquer new worlds or frolic through old ones. They have the power to change one's mindset with a simple image or secretive line of dialogue. The heart of a film is most powerfully expressed when it remains but a faint shadow of the reality which passed by in its neat 24 frames. Cinema has the power to shed light on newfound subjects and ideas. Cinema has the power to purvey a pure expressionism of reality, all in the form of a story. Cinema has the power to change lives, to save lives, through its expression of beauty and truth, each emanating goodness for the audience. Films remain a cultural phenomenon, whether that be through the latest summer blockbuster or instant cult classic. However, why is it that secular films so easily draw us into their worlds and enrapture the audience in its wonder and magic of a captured reality? But it seems to take an effort or a feeling of duty to watch Christian films. Why is it that Christian films lack the same vigor and vitality as secular films? When was the last time you watched a Christian film and felt truly enraptured in its beauty and truth as it enraptured your soul? There needs to be a revival not only in Christian art, but specifically there remains a dire need for a revival in the Christian film industry. To show this, first I will begin by demonstrating the artistic merit and purity of truth that lies within the veils of modern secular cinema. Second, I will show what is wrong with Christian films, why they must change, and how that might be accomplished. First, modern secular cinema impacts society not because of what they say, but because of how they say it. Films impact through their use of artistic expression. But what is art? What is the purpose of it? Why does the very nature of it exist? It can't be described through chemical reactions or mathematical equations. Sure, one may say that certain chords on a piano, when played in meticulous succession, or the fleeting beauty of the human face all rely upon mathematical symmetry. That may explain the goings-on, but there yet remains an explanation for the appeal in the first place. Where lies the truth of beauty? Well, I would beg to say that it's just that, or more so the other way around. Truth remains beautiful, is it not? The purpose or meaning of beauty is not meant to be explained, but instead to further the very act of explaining. Truth is communicated best. It flourishes when beauty abounds. This is what is being accomplished within the realm of secular cinema. Secular cinema has been conveying truth and beauty ever since its creation. New directors are constantly experimenting new ways to communicate their stories. After the past 100 years or so, film has evolved in its power to communicate truth on the deepest levels known to man. And How is this done? What makes an amazing film so great? The magnitude or the quality of a film's impact on the audience may be found at the center or the core of cinema itself. I believe the critically acclaimed film auteur and director Alfonso Cuarón put it best when he tweeted, "In the history of cinema, masterpieces have existed without sound, without color, without a story, without actors, and without music. No one single film has ever existed without cinematography and without editing." There lies the heart of the matter. To help in understanding what these things are, I'll put it this way. Cinematography is the way or style in which a film is shot, and editing is the assembly or the order in which those shots are composed. The reason Alfonso Cuarón places an extensive amount of importance on cinematography and editing, I wholeheartedly believe, is because, like many other experienced storytellers, within the medium of film, cinematography and editing enhance a film through their use of subtext. Subtext abides as a way to communicate to the audience without saying a single word. Subtext is where the heart of a film lies and the truth which is being portrayed. Ernest Hemingway, an American journalist, novelist, and short story writer, once stated, "If a writer of prose knows enough about what he is writing about, he may omit things that he knows. And the reader, if the writer is writing truly enough, will have a feeling of those things as strongly as though the writer had stated them." Here, Hemingway points out the significance of subtext found within storytelling. Films inspire through the experiences in which they were molded. The experience of a film must be reliable and authentic in some form or fashion in order to capture and seep into the viewer, and the majority of that is accomplished through subtext. In the end, a film relies most on a cornerstone of communication. How a film communicates remains critical. So how is it that secular films communicate and relate so well to audiences around the world? Again, it all has to do with the artistry that pervades through secular films. If one were to list off the most powerful and impactful secular films of all time, coming from all over the world, as one looks closer, the films abide, first of all, as art. There remain countless secular films that have successfully portrayed truth and beauty in some of the most biblically accurate ways, all due to their use of cinematography and editing in artistic fashions. For example, the film Signs, a sci-fi thriller by M. Night Shyamalan, portrays the troubled life of a retired priest turned farmer who struggles to make sense of crop signs appearing within his cornfields. Now, this may appear to be your average alien monster thriller. However, as you begin to dig deeper and push away the cornfields of Hollywood magic and read the signs, those signs may turn into miracles. The film battles for the hearts of the audience as it struggles to determine the nature of meaning and purpose within life. To aid in interpreting the matters within the film, one may look to the works of Viktor Frankl, an Austrian neurologist and psychiatrist as well as a Holocaust survivor. He writes in his book, Man's Search for Ultimate Meaning, and I quote, "Vis-a-vis, the fact that it is equally conceivable that everything is absolutely meaningful and that everything is absolutely meaningless. In other words, that the scales are equally high. We must throw the weight of our own being into one of these scales." Through the aid of this quote, one may begin to fully recognize and realize the meaning of miracles within the film. I believe the YouTube channel, Like Stories of Old, put it best when he said that one may begin to realize that the movie portrays the idea of being open to all possibilities, even the possibilities that someday there will be a moment when random thoughts marking the course of one's life suddenly reveals themselves into a pattern that defies our most reasonable sensibilities, leaving us with an experience that is, for all intents and purposes, a miracle pointing us to a divine creator of love and purpose. However, most importantly, this is never directly stated to the audience. Ambiguity thrives throughout this film. You see, it remains the subtext that truly delivers the truth and the beauty. There remains a great deal of other films who pursue similar lines of thought, each questioning or adding on to the big ideas, such as the meaning and truth of human interaction and sacrifice found within a family or community. This can be seen in such films as I Am Legend, The Help, Remember the Titans, Nostalgia, First Man, Stalker, and A Quiet Place, or the idea of what it means to perceive and to actuate our reality. This can be seen in films such as Inception, Shutter Island, The Mirror, Solaris, Ready Player One, Groundhog Day, and The Truman Show, or films that explore the definition of what it means to be human. This is discovered in movies such as Blade Runner 2049, Nemo, Inside Out, Ex Machina, Pinocchio, M, and The Wizard of Oz. All of these films, along with hundreds of others, pursue what I would say is biblical truth in some of the most passionate, meticulous, and beautiful ways. These are films purveying theology through fiction. One of the biggest reasons as to why billions, if not trillions of people watch films every year around the world is because these films that we hold so dear to us have begun to shape our understanding in the same way a speech, a novel, music, or a painting have been accomplishing through the entirety of human history, all due to the pieces of truth that these films convey. Viktor Frankl writes in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, stating, "Striving to find a meaning in one's life is the primary motivational force in man." I believe that this is what cinema has begun to accomplish. Cinema has the ability to wet the mouth of those thirsty for meaning. It doesn't quench, but just a hint of truth or meaning can grant the greatest amount of joy and wonder into the hearts of the audience and then urge them to seek its source. Of course, all this meaning is not always out in front, but instead is made all the more wondrous through a truly encapsulating story. And this is where Christian films are lacking. They too often separate the truth of the gospel away from the beauty and the story it should be shown through. Second, Christian films lack artistry, which hinders their ability to purvey truth. The first reason Christian films lack the ability to convey truth that is also beautiful is because they lack imagination. Christians should be working to intertwine the truth and goodness of the gospel through its narrative without separating it from the beauty. Too often, we get Christian films with a narrative either about the gospel or with it awkwardly forced in. Narrative is meant to abide as a fantastical conglomeration of truth and beauty mixed together. Truth and spectacle both felt and seen as one. Jerome Bruner writes in his book Acts of Meaning about the importance and power of narrative, stating, "It specializes in the forging of links between the exceptional and the ordinary. This is exactly what secular films are already doing and what Christian films must strive to achieve. After all, Christians have the most exceptional thing to share, the absolute truth and supreme meaning that each one of us continues to seek." The second reason Christian films lack the ability to convey truth that is also beautiful is because a great deal of the directors making faith-based films do not see them as art in the first place. For example, many of the producers and directors working at Pure Flix Studios have gone on record and stated that they aren't filmmakers. They're preachers simply doing what they know best, giving a sermon to a congregation or audience. The films produced by Pure Flix are simply sermons in disguise, and similar to a sermon, the movies don't shy away from the subject material, which may be crucial to the power of a sermon, but detrimental to the cultivation of something truly beautiful in the realm of cinema. The people at Pure Flix do have pure intentions, and I do love that. The beauty of the gospel is so beautiful, and it's really meant to be shared in multiple ways. However, directness in Christian films remains contrapuntal to the subject material. Delivering direct commands or invitations to the Christian faith through awkward lines of dialogue or call-in numbers at the beginning of the credits simply does not work in the realm of filmmaking. And there lies the second part of the issue. Christian films, if not always, remains extremely direct to its audience. Stanley Kubrick, a master storyteller and world-renowned film director and auteur, once stated, along the idea of directness within storytelling and cinema, saying, if you really want to communicate something, even if it's just an emotion or an attitude, let alone an idea, the least effective and the least enjoyable way is directly. It only goes in about an inch. But if you get people to the point where they have to think for a moment what it is you're getting at, and then discover it, the thrill of discovery goes through the heart. Christian filmmakers must work to share the beauty of the gospel in ways that lead the audience to its beauty and truth, not the other way around. This point of ambiguity versus directness points back to the importance and power of subtext. In the end, Christianity and art abide as rather similar things, as the purpose of art and Christianity alike are not meant to be pushed or blatantly forced onto an audience or a collective group of people, but gently, humbly, and lovingly displayed through either divine discovery, terrifying trials, or wondrous wandering through wonder. It is vital. If Christian films are to be a platform to tell the ministry of truth, then it must be truthful in its telling. It remains critical that Christian filmmakers recognize the importance of art within filmmaking. Now, a great deal of you may be saying that I'm not granting Christian films an even playing field, that I'm not considering all of the possible reasons as to why Christian films have not reached the same quality as some of the other films that I have previously mentioned. For example, the greatest and most obvious matter may be that they don't have the same budget in order to procure the same quality of equipment, therefore the same quality of filmmaking. It's true that Christian films don't have as high of a budget as most Hollywood films do. However, Christian filmmakers aren't as lacking in money as you may think. For example, the movie God's Not Dead currently has the largest turnover rate in box office sales in the history of film, which, based upon its budget of only $2 million, it ended up making over $60 million in profits. That's over a 3,000% turnover in profit. Moreover, other films such as Heaven is for Real, Courageous, I Can Only Imagine, and The Case for Christ have an average budget of around $6.5 million. There remains a large number of critically acclaimed films that have gone on to win Oscars and many other such awards around the world, which were generated from surprisingly low budgets as well. Movies such as Little Miss Sunshine with only $8 million, Memento with $5 million, Lost in Translation with $4 million, Bronson with only $230,000, A Ghost Story with only $100,000, Pi and A Blair Witch Project with around $60,000, and Catfish with around $30,000. Furthermore, a large amount of faith-based films actually use professional Hollywood-grade equipment. To put this in perspective, Christian films such as God's Not Dead and Courageous used RED cameras, which are the same cameras used for such films as The Social Network, Captain Marvel, Mission Impossible Fallout, The Martian or The Hobbit. Or the Christian movies Heaven is for Real and Fireproof were shot on Panavision VariCam and Genesee HD cameras. Recent films that use these cameras are the likes of Captain America the First Avenger, Alice in Wonderland, and Crazy Rich Asians. Moreover, in the end, a film's budget and their equipment is never the deciding factor in the quality of the film, but it is how the equipment is used. So what separates these critically acclaimed masterpieces from the so-so Christian films? The Christian films were even using higher quality equipment than most of the low-budget films previously stated. I believe it all comes down to what lies at the heart of cinema. Films aren't defined by what they use or the specific message which they want to deliver, but it is how it is delivered, how the beauty and goodness is intricately and wonderfully intertwined with the truth of the film. This is where a film will either light up the eyes of an audience or send them cringing or turning away from the very thing which was meant to be heard. In conclusion, Christian films can't simply communicate the truth, goodness, and beauty of the scriptures through words. Instead, they must work to form the very feeling, the emotion of the truth and of the goodness, and all of that through the beauty. Christian films must strive for a higher standard, perhaps even higher than secular films, in order to portray the truth of the scriptures in an artistic and creative manner so that it may be received in a meaningful and life-changing way. A well-known quote from C.S. Lewis states, "Aim at heaven and you'll get earth thrown in. Aim at earth and you get neither." I believe the same concept applies to films. Faith-based films act to convey truth, often forgetting or blatantly missing the beauty of it altogether. However, if you simply act to portray the beauty in its purest form, you may just have wondrous truth beautifully portrayed as well. In the end, when the credits have rolled, all one can do is act faithfully in discernment and seek the truth, goodness, and beauty, all found in a world of pure imagination. Thank you.